I believe every single desk should have one of these, and that is, if you work from home or you're working remotely, you want to think about a few different accessories that's going to make your home and work life dramatically better. And in this video, we're going to cover 16 different items that's going to help you improve your productivity. So let's dive right into it. As you think about the accessories that you use, typically it breaks down into two things, one that has tech and one that does not. So in this video, we're going to break it out and we're going to talk about the tech first and the non-techie accessories that you might want to use when you work at home. Now, granted, everything comes at a cost and everything comes based on space requirements. So you want to think about what makes sense for you and what is right, because initially you might not want to have every single accessories, or you might, depending on your budget and space constraints. Having said that, let's go dive right into the tech side first, and we're going to find out what's number one. Number one is keyboard. Whether it's a wired or wireless keyboard, what you want to be aware of is, one, are you comfortable using it? And two, can you live with it? What I mean about living with it is that when you are typing, sometimes it makes noises. So are you comfortable with that, and can you handle it? Because sometimes keyboards make a lot of noise, so you want to be aware of it. One, what not only feels comfortable, but the other thing is, can you live with it? At the same time, you also want to think about how it feels when you're using it, because sometimes you might need an ergonomic keyboard, or perhaps that's something that's super ergonomic, or you're perhaps comfortable with using the keyboard that's on your laptop. Next is mouse. Now, whether you prefer a mouse like this or you prefer a mouse like this that has more of a tracking ball, it's completely up to you. What you have to realize is, as you use the mouse more, one, depending on which surfaces, sometimes you can use a normal mouse like this, or if it's perhaps a glass table that you're working on at home, you might opt for using something like this because the laser might not recognize at the bottom. Now, if you're working out of a small coffee table at home, then you might not have space for a mouse, so you want to think about that when you're actually using that accessory in the first place. Having said that, the third thing is trackpad. Now, trackpad is something like this. Not everyone's going to need a trackpad, but if you want to have a trackpad, there is a few things you want to be aware of. One, it makes it so much easier. So personally for myself, I usually use the mouse with my right hand and the trackpad with my left hand. So that makes it a bit more easier to relieve the pressure instead of using just one hand for the navigation. The other thing is, if you have a laptop, then you can kind of connect that in and it might work or it might not. And that's what you want to be aware of is, does it make sense for you? If you used to work in the office and now you're thinking about working at home, or perhaps forced to, then you want to think about how can you make your life much more easier. One thing being which is, we're so used to everything being connected. So first things first is being aware of having some sort of USB hub, because we typically tend to connect a lot of things, whether it's mouse, keyboard, printer, etc. You might want to think about, hey, what if I use something like this that'll speed up the process, especially if I don't have a lot of USB port connections in my laptop. And based on that, there are so many different USB hubs. You can check out on different websites to see what works for you and your laptop. You have to think about the cable length, because when it comes to the cable length, if you're just connecting it, then it might make sense. But if you're needing extension for your other accessories and it might not have a short or long cable length, that's going to impact of your space requirements, especially if it's a small table that you're working out of. Next is extended display. Now, having a second screen is hugely helpful. If you ask almost anyone who uses a second screen, whether it's on an iPad or a secondary laptop or perhaps desktop screen, what you'll find is they'll never go back to having just one, because it makes so much easier and you're slightly more productive when you have two things side by side and you can reference it without having to switch your browser tabs. Now, having said that, what you want to be aware of is the space itself. Now, when it comes to space, you want to think about, can you actually lay it out? And also the setup, because if you have to constantly set it up and take it down, set it up and take it down at the end of the workday, then it becomes much more of a hassle to really use it, or weighing the pros and cons. Especially if you are working out of a different room in your house, or perhaps working out of a different place. Having said that, you have to also think about how heavy is it, because if it's a larger screen, then it becomes a bit more bulky to carry. At the same time, also setting it up and the fragility of it is something you want to think about as you're setting and using that. Power. Now when it comes to power, you want to think about, do you have an extension cord and do you have an outlet? Now when it comes to outlet, you can have multi outlets, and at the same time you can have the right size and length requirements. Now having said that, if you're working out of a set space, then it might make sense to have a multi-extension outlet so you can connect a whole bunch of things in, whether it is your extra laptop or perhaps extra screen power or perhaps the charging cable for your phone. And when you have that everything close by, then it becomes easy for you to spread out your perhaps technology on the table and then get to work. At the same time, you want to figure out how can you have a surge protector, because if things go for worse, at least it is slightly backed up. Let's talk about sound next. Now when it comes to sound, you want to think about two different factors. One is your speakers, because if you are working in a set table, then it might make sense to have speakers that are already set up and you plug in and you get the best quality sound, especially if you're doing video and audio production. Now, having said that, what you want to be aware of is if you're in a public place, or perhaps if you are in a place where it's a dining room where there are perhaps children around or somewhere else, having headphones, especially noise canceling headphones, make a huge difference, because not only can you plug in and focus on your work, but it eliminates the outside distracting noises and helps you concentrate and help others hear you, especially when it's a video call. Next is power banks. Power banks is simple pieces of batteries that help you extend your laptop or phone use. Now you can typically carry it around in different places. However, if you already have outlets nearby, then you can perhaps use it. Now one thing that a lot of people might like to use is not even use any outlets or power banks in the first place, because with their full laptop power and the limited time that the laptop has to use its current battery life, it restricts the amount of work they can do, and it helps them time block and helps them be a bit more productive, and that might work for you. But at the same time, having a secondary power bank helps you have something on the back end just in case your laptop needs that extra bit of power. Hard drive. Hard drive is, well, frankly, extra space and storage for your files. Now, if you are working at home, sometimes you have access to cloud, other times it might take a while to download, especially if you don't have fast internet. So having a good hard drive, perhaps 1 terabyte or larger, might help you not only back up your files, but also you will have a secondary place to store anything that you might want to later reference downline in the future. Now that we've covered the tech side, and believe me, there are a lot of other minor tech items that is nice to have as an accessory, we're going to now move on to the non-tech items. Now before we do, one other thing I just want to mention is if you want to join a community of people who work at home and work remotely, check out council.club. Now on to the other accessories. Next is wristpads. Now let's face it, wristpads, whether it is for your mouse or your laptop, it's going to help you improve your ergonomics and help to reduce in wrist pains. Now, along the same lines of thought, you want to be aware of what is your sitting position, your ergonomic, and perhaps what that means is a chair, wrist and elbow pads, or perhaps a mouse pad that'll help improve how you use your technology, your laptop, your screen, and everything in between. Next is the laptop riser. Now when it comes to laptop riser, you want to think about, one, is it going to be fixed or is it going to be temporary? Because sometimes you might want to prefer having a table that rises up and down, or if you don't have the luxury of having a laptop riser that is temporary, allows you to have that flexibility of if you kind of feel like standing or sitting down, you have that. The other thing is with the laptop riser, whether you are just sitting down or not, at least it helps you improve your posture. Instead of you just hunching over and trying to work, it helps you improve your posture and look at the screen properly. Along the same lines, you want to think about, one, what is your budget for the laptop riser, because it ranges, and two, if it is going to be fixed, where is it going to be mounted? If it's going to be mounted on your table that you use frequently, then you want to think about all the other things that go along with it. At the same time, by having that laptop riser, sometimes you can do a combination of a laptop and a secondary screen, and that makes it much more easier to have everything in one area. Next up is a letter tray. Now, letter tray, if you have a lot of files or perhaps notes coming in, then having a letter tray is helpful for you to organize on your envelopes or mail coming in. Now, this is not for everyone, but a lot of people, this is going to make a significant difference of clearing the clutter that's typically on your table. Mat. Whether it's for your chair or standing, having a mat might help make it easier for your floor and your productivity. How? Well, frankly, if you're standing, having a specialized mat helps you stand and not have the very same flat surface that allows you to break up the monotony of just standing in one place. Now, this is going to be dependent on obviously your budget and your space, but having that allows you to improve your floor and at the same time make less of an impact on your floor itself. Now, not everyone's going to need a desk lamp, but having some sort of light source that is not above but rather on the table might make it easier for you. Again, that's dependent on your space. Now, if you have lighting that's set up that's all around you and that's better, go with that. But if it's something that you don't have access to or you need more control based on your table itself, then perhaps that is a better route. And having said that, you want to again be aware of the space that you have, and two, what is the lighting, because having warm lighting is better because it's representative of like the fire, incandescent light, but having a colder lighting reminds you of more perhaps like winter and fluorescent lighting, so that might not be ideal. So you want to think about not only the desk lamp, the size, but also the color of the light itself. Notebook and paper. Now, having paper right beside you, especially when you are working away, makes it so much easier. If you just have to get an idea down, just write it down, and then or perhaps just write the top 3 things you want to accomplish. Having that, whether it's on a paper or post-it note, makes it that much easier for you to kind of get your work done and at the same time not worry about if it's gonna fall or perhaps break down, or you're not gonna have access to it if there is no power. If you're still watching, that means there are a few bonus items I just want to kind of throw in there. One being which is a photo frame. A photo frame is something to think about because, well, having photos around you where you work makes a huge difference, especially because it makes it personalized to you, not anyone else. And having a photo frame, whether it's of your loved ones or something you aspire to, or perhaps of yourself even, that makes it that much better to make you feel a bit more comfortable when you're working in your home office. I believe every single desk should have one of these. And that is a cup or a mug, especially if you're used to drinking water or coffee. Having liquids that's beside you is going to help you improve your hydration, your focus, and allows you to not really get up and go drink somewhere else, especially if it's right beside you. And at the same time, because you're not going to be leaving less, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be alert because you're hydrated, especially if it's something like water. Now, personally for me or someone else, if you prefer coffee or you don't, then having your beverage of choice nearby just makes it that much easier. So these are the different accessories that you might want to have in your home when you work from home or when you're working remotely in your home office. Now, having said that, these are the 16 based on my recommendations of working remotely for the past several years. What do you think? What did I miss? Or what is your favorite in there? Personally, for me, I love having a glass of water. And that is whether it's I am outside or perhaps inside at home working away on my table. Having a water or a glass of water makes a huge difference, especially because one, you stay hydrated, and two, you just feel better when you're working with water right beside you. So hope this was helpful for you. If you want to check out other fantastic videos, especially how to set up a home office, how to be productive, or perhaps how to make friends when you're working from home, or perhaps how to choose a co-working space, check on out the other videos by subscribing. And if you want to join a curated community of like-minded remote workers and leaders, head on over to council.club. That's all for the video, and I'll see you on the next one.